They're very selective about it. So they invited Lynn and I to, we could literally have picked, and we did pick cardiology. So for 2 years, her last 2 years, we sat in with cardiology once a month, and we would speak to what our experiences were, how the doctors dealt with the patient, how when they sent us out, what did the drug list look like, did they explain everything, bed sores, bed ulcers, falls, etc. And so when Lynn died, I thought that would probably be the end of it, and they said, no, we'd like for you to continue doing that, so I did. And then they started to, it's part of their whole thing called care transformation, and it's where they want to hear from, if you will, the customer. They're also trying to connect hospital, and you know this, very hierarchical, and so from administrators to surgeons, doctors, techs, nurses, to bring them together, understanding that how you deal with conflict has everything to do with medical care. That if there's an explosion in the OR where a nurse and a surgeon don't get along, that's going to somehow eventually speak to the kind of health care you might get. So they encourage folks to come together and talk about what happened in that moment. So, and this is a noble effort. It's hard to do this stuff. I get, of course, at the newspaper, the stuff I do at Emory. A friend of mine with Delta's invited me to do some team building with Delta, and I make this comment. Doing the open heart surgery, flying the jet, doing what you do, that's really the fixing of the dog, if you will. That's really the easy part. It's the relationships and how you get along, how you work as a team has everything to do, I believe, with the quality of medical care that you're going to provide. We do know that the science and the medicine is important. I'm not dismissing that. I want you to know how to fix my dog, but I also want something more than that, and that's what I want to get in, and that's what I want to talk about. I'm on a variety of committees that get me on this one committee that basically deals with everything that goes wrong medically at the hospital. To do that, they had to put me on the board of directors. I still don't quite understand that. It's a really God moment for me. So there I sit and do all of that. So that kind of gives you the context of what Emory's about, how I got involved, and I'm speeding through this because I want to honor your time. Here now is the main stuff. This is the stuff that is the connecting piece of what all of this has to do with why I'm here, or why I'm here has all to do with this. And it really goes back to Lynn. During the 2 years that we were PFAs, patient family advisors, together, when Lynn wasn't in the hospital, and she was there a lot with a variety of things, open heart surgery, I mean so many times that she just shouldn't have lived. The doctors there will tell you that. She should not have walked out of there, and yet she did. But during those years, then when we were there, when Dr. Andy Smith, who was Lynn's primary cardiologist, if he saw us there on the floor in cardiology, he would, and you know, at Emory, and you probably understand, I know you understand this, that it's a teaching hospital, so it's not one doctor, it's many. And so if he saw us, he would invite us to come down, and when he was making his rounds, going in and out of the rooms, and he didn't care if I came, frankly, but he did want Lynn to come. And he would have Lynn speak to his doctors about the difference in Lynn's estimation of what a great doctor was versus what an extraordinary doctor is. And it was pretty simple for Lynn. So hear her voice today, and I'll let you sort it out as to what it means to you and what you do. But Lynn would say the greatness is pretty obvious. It's in the science, it's in the medicine, it's in the academics. Clearly you are bright people. But the extraordinary part comes in the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes or whatever it is that you have time to spend with me. And in that time, will you know me? Will you respect me? Will you know my name? And whether it's metaphorically or Lynn would welcome you touching her actually, but in some way, will you touch my life? And she said, I don't expect you to be in there more than 5 minutes. You are very busy. This is a hospital that's got a lot of important stuff going on here. But in those moments, I need you to be more than just the medically brilliant doctor. I need you to know who I am, because that relationship, it was important to Lynn, and I would offer that it's important to all of us. People, when they bring their dogs, cats, canaries, when people come to Emory and so on, absolutely we need you to know as much as you could possibly know about what's going on and what potentially could kill my pet, could kill me. But there is that other part that's so important medically. And it was so amazing to watch these brilliant doctors, some of them very young in their career, some of them even like Dr. Smith, who has a key role across the country in terms of transplants, heart transplants, and with everything having to do with cardiology beyond, frankly, Emory. And yet these doctors would, in that moment, they would get it. And I thought it was always fascinating to see that. To that degree, when Lynn was dying, and the heart had just finally failed, and this was the day before she would actually die, January of 2012. Dr. Smith had come by that morning to sit down with my two sons and I and say, what do I need to answer for you so that is there anything you don't understand about what's going on? And he spent an hour with us, if you will, sitting there doing the medical part of it, which he had been, because Lynn's last 5 weeks were in CCU, and Dr. Smith would come by about every third day, and he would be both a friend and a doctor, and would help me to know that, because it's my decision. When Lynn's kidney started to fail, they could recommend something, but it was my call, dialysis or not. He sat there and was both a friend, but also my doctor. And when I made that decision to turn there were no machines, there were drips. To turn everything off, I did it with absolute peace that it was the right thing to do, to let Lynn go. And that had to do with a doctor who took the time to connect with not only my wife, but with myself. So the day that Dr. Smith had come to spend time with me and my sons, he came back that afternoon to say goodbye to Lynn. And so my grandsons were there, and they were over on the side of the room. And Dr. Smith went up and he knelt down to Lynn's head. Of course, she was out then, and he whispered in her ears, and I don't know what he said. But when he got out, I thought he was going to come back to me and shake my hand and walk out the door, but he didn't. He walked over to my grandsons, and they had kind of a funny moment about school loyalties there. And then I heard him say, "You guys need to know that your grandmother changed the way I do medicine." And that's probably as honoring thing as Lynn could have ever heard in terms of the impact that she had made on Dr. Smith, and then the ripple effect that has. I'll close with this. This is to your calling. I'll let you sort out where you are and how important you think the relationship issue is as you treat me and my animal. But when I speak to new physicians, and they let me do that at Emory, and I speak to new employees, when I do a marriage teaching at church, I always use this story. It is about a surgeon, and it is about his impact on our lives, but I think it speaks to the calling that's on you. And I believe in callings. I believe I've got one. I believe you've got one. And here's the story. Lynn had open heart surgery in 2007 by a tremendous surgeon named Dr. Chen. And we were near that end where we were going to get to leave the hospital. So Dr. Chen had come by to make that last visit, and by then he knew the drill. Lynn was not going to just let you come in and do the medical stuff. No, sit down on the bed. I want to see the latest pictures you got and that whole bit. So he was accommodating by this time. So he's there, and so again, last time I'd get a chance to see him before we would leave, and I said, "Dr. Chen, I just want to let you know how important you are to Lynn, to me, to my boys, our family." And his response was appropriate. It was, "Thank you very much." And I said, I just knew he didn't really understand, and there was really no reason to understand where I was going with this. So I said, "No, let me tell you, let me really go to the depth of what I'm talking about. And I want you to hear this about what I believe, how you get a chance to impact people's lives. I said, Dr. Chin, there are two sets of hands that have touched Lynn's heart. God's when he made it, and yours when he gave you the privilege of fixing it. I believe God's given you the same privilege too. When people walk in, they're bringing in something that they desperately want in their life. And you get that rare opportunity to touch not just the animal, but to touch those folks in a way that they won't ever forget. And that's a pretty neat calling. This is about a building today, I get that. But it's about the people who are going to walk in. And it's pretty neat that you get to do this. And I'm privileged just to be here and hang out with you and go get a hamburger. And I love deviled eggs. So that's,
I think I ate the last one.
Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait to come in and use the little treadmill. But also can't wait to be here and see the people as they come through and seeing the impact that you're going to have on their lives.